So first of all, thank you for everyone that came. Thank you for all the professors, those in the committee, everyone that's here or not here. Thank you for my sister that came, Jessica. It's the reason that I'm doing the MFA. She helped me come here, and thank you, Shelby, my partner. Without her, I wouldn't make it MFA. I would already give up, but she's like, no, you need to keep doing it. She was the one that, like, I know most of y'all don't know how stressed and grumpy I am, but she knows, and she's still here, so shout out to Shelby too. So, welcome to 17 Steps to Strategy. This methodology was created on a result of my 8 years of professional experience. My theoretical basis that helped me do the research for the thesis, and the workshop that was hosted last semester on design workshop class. And I'm going to talk a little bit of how much each one of those helped me to build this methodology to teach branding strategy. As a professional with 8 years of like experience in the field, I learned that like designers, when they work in the field, having some marketing knowledge is really important, because if you work in freelancer or even like getting bigger clients, when you're projecting, designing anything for them, you need to understand what is the value of design, what your design is helping the business, and how you're improving the communication and the strategy of the business by working with design. My theoretical basis too is a lot of people that work with branding strategy and also work with design and marketing. They all the time saying how communication and marketing is getting more complex, how much we need to break that relation of buyer and consumer and become something more of an emotional connection, that the users is going to be having a loyalty to the branding. And examples of this is, for example, people that chooses Apple over Android or PlayStation over Xbox, and they defend those choices. And it's not really because of the product, it's because of their relation with the branding. And last is like the workshop that I had 2 students here in Jacksonville State University that sat to do this workshop with me. And we had these 17 steps that I helped them to understand a little bit of marketing and how to use design and marketing together to create branding strategy. And we went to the 17 steps, and if y'all already walk a little bit, the results of the workshop is over here. And I want to also talk about the uses of this methodology, because it can be used in multiple ways. For teaching, for example, in a worst case scenario, if a professor is teaching design in a university or even like other technical courses, if they don't have a marketing department that has a connection with the design or art department, you can use this methodology to introduce a lot of these concepts to design students and make them understand the basis of marketing and how they can use those knowledge to help them building a branding strategy. For students, the same way, if they go through this methodology, even with the teacher teaching them or someone here that take this methodology and want to apply to work with the client, it's also gonna work, because the way that I mount this methodology, it really works in a way that is basically how the market works, because I use the app for process management. That can be Trello, Milanote, Notion, that the whole time we have the team and they know each one of the steps that they need to follow. They have the deadlines. So it's basically how an agency will work, and have the students having the contact with this kind of dynamic prepares them to work with this methodology in the market as well. And something that I want to also bring up is that AI is coming, and I think a lot of people are getting concerned because AI, all of us here know how it's easy and fast to generate image, and us as designers, most of our work is generating image. And this methodology kind of helps students to change a little bit the mindset of designers. Instead of being just generating image, they also gonna be being decision makers. Or, for example, if you're using AI and you have your client, for example, because in the future you don't know how much of designers will need to use AI. If you have your client, you do the research of the end user, you know your client, you're gonna know what kind of prompts you're gonna put on AI to generate image. We don't know how much AI is gonna be on our lives in the future, but it's just something that it's a direction that I can tell people that is like, okay, AI is coming, but we have other ways that we can deal with this. But there's a lot of questions that needs to be answered in the future. It's just a direction that I'm proposing for us to follow as professionals or teachers. And I want to go over a little bit of the steps because I know that like 17 steps maybe is too much for everyone to read, so I want to go over really briefly. So the first one is business ideas. So because we don't have a real client on the teaching environment, when we apply this in a teaching environment, I want the students to come up with a business idea. And something to help the students to choose this business idea is to have the final users, the audience of this business to be really close of their reality. For example, Luma, they choose art students. The final project that they came up with was the art student subscription box. It will be monthly and it will be like some supplies of art and design, but also we have a lot of tips about critiquing or how to choose palette colors or how to use typefaces. So it'll be like a help of like intellectual help, but also supplies and also like talking about competitions and things like that. The second one, target and product. So like I said, was an art subscription box. And the third one is market study. I made the students go the competitors of art or subscription boxes, and then to understand how they make it and how they could make better than the competitors. Branding influences, I made them understand how branding communicate on social medias and websites and how to create the relation between the user and the branding and how to transcend the relation that I talked in the beginning about buyer and consumer and transcend that to be a relation more intimate than that. Final user research is the number 5 is I made them go on social media actually and go to pages, art pages and things like that and make students understand how their final users behave. Even they are already art students, I want them to get insights from this research and how to apply those insights into the branding. Step 6, persona creation. So most of the people here are familiar with this, but persona creation is kind of like an archetype of a person that you start imagining that person and taking decisions on your project based on the preferences or pain points of that person. 7 step, branding positioning. This one, I make the students find what their branding had different from the others. Why someone would choose their branding instead of the other. Number 8, mission, vision, values. Any business that exists, they need to have those, and having the students understand how to make those and how they help them to keep like making decisions from the business was something really important. So like mission, vision, values, basically like what is the pillar concepts or the main concepts that the branding needs to stand for and where they want to go from that and what is the values that they have. The voice definition is one of the most important for the branding is because it's how the branding is going to communicate, or in social media, for example, how they're going to talk with the end user. It can be like really formal, okay, they can be like using slangs, and this kind of like anthropomorphization of the branding really helps the branding connect with the end users, because we don't connect with branding, we connect with the human part that we kind of like simulate in the branding. The naming process, what is really interesting because it's a really complex, and I couldn't say that there's enough time to work on naming because it's such a complex thing to choose, because you need to take in account cultural context, you take account if this company is going to become international one day, how many translations of the same name can be meaning something else. And I'm being Brazilian, like I know how many times that things that get translated to Portuguese, they get really bad. So it's something really interesting, and I don't see a lot of times with doing naming. I think it's a really interesting process for us to do too. Stylescapes, that is basically taking the persona, but we're also mounting the visual identity that this persona will relate the best. On this point, it's really interesting to see that at this point we didn't have any visual cues for the whole concept of the branding. This is the first time that we had, and when we did stylescapes, was 3 stylescapes, 3 students did 3 stylescapes, and when you put all of them together, they're really similar visually. And it was something that made me really happy because it tell me how aligned the team was just by concept, just by research, and it was something that proves that there's something there in this methodology that is going to help people to work better in teams. Number 12, sketching. So everyone knows here, like we start sketching, starting to have the first few ideas visually, and what leads us to the next step, that's refining ideas, where you get your sketches, you make them better, we discuss in group, and you say which one is the best one, and go to the 14, that's the logo development, and you all saw Luma, it's pretty cool logo, and 15, and something that is really interesting here too, because 15 is identity development, but it's visual identity development, because to this point, we are just developing the branding identity, what is really different from the visual identity and brand identity. Brand identity is what people understand about the branding, what they talk about the brand. Identity, visual identity development is how they see what's the visuals, the colors, the type. And what brings us to the 16th step, that is communication strategy. For this point, like I said, there was our art subscription box. We had this strategy of we're gonna reach 3 points on our communication. There will be for students, for parents, and for universities, because it's an educational context, and also because of parents, most of the students wouldn't have the money to buy it. We also was reaching the marketing for parents as well, and students, of course, that you will be our final user. And 17, there is mock-up and printing. That is basically like making all this process become something real, something tangible. And that's it. That's my methodology. And thank y'all for coming.
Anybody have any questions for you? I've got a question. So if you were to do this all over again, run the workshop, what would you do different?
I think having more time. I really wish that, like we talk about this in the defense, I really wish that some of those stuff that they produced became something real. The box was something real for people to see how good it was. Like I also was wanting them to mock up the social media, make a fake social media and have this out there and see how people react, because it will be something here for the art department and see how other students will relate to this project. Because branding strategy and branding in general is not, most of it is not creating, but maintaining it. Is how you build the whole relation. So I really wanted to see the second step of how they would maintain the branding, how the branding Luma will be really communicating with art students and see how it will be. Because I was really interested to see how art students will receive this. Maybe it wouldn't be good, maybe it would, but
Like have a test audience or something?
I needed to test, but yeah.
Right.
Maybe in the future.
How long did it take? How long did the workshop take?
It was 1.5 months. I needed to do a break because it was between projects, but it was 1 month, 1.5 months.
So 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, if I had the chance to do it in one semester, I could do something really big with them, you know.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe in the future I could really do this workshop again and then do the whole scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a summer class?
A follow-up on that, on the maintaining the branding, which is really interesting. Would you, I mean, I know you have 17 steps, you know, add more, I guess, but do you feel like that whole second phase, we'll call it maybe that, of the maintaining side of it, which I do think is important, would that fit in the context of this methodology, or is that something that could be developed past that, and that's almost for you another
I do think because was something that we are, like I said, like the team at some point I had to prove that they are so aligned that I totally would like trust Stefan and Sydney, the two students that did this workshop, to keep maintaining it because they're so into the process. They research so much about that they knew so much about Numa that they would know the feel of Numa. They would know how to communicate to other people what Numa is. Unfortunately, they're not here, but like I trust all of them. If you one day y'all want to go and ask them what is the project about, like I knew like every single time that we had a meeting, I knew that they know what Numa is about, and they would know how to maintain it if they put out there, you know.
Yeah.
So it's 17 steps, and I know like 17 is kind of a big number.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's like the ideal amount of steps that could happen in this sort of creative process, but like say you had to lose some steps, like there was a shorter timeline or something like that, what steps are the first to go? Do you feel like are the most kind of expendable in this process?
It really depends because well, something that we discussed too when I was like talking about this project with the other professors in the committee is that sometimes, and if you already work with clients, some clients are not going to have the budget or the time to do a whole branding strategy process. And I think like if the students had the introduction to this whole knowledge of branding strategy, they could decide what they could apply or not. And it's something us as designers, us as understanding what branding strategy, we do all the time. Because like it's not all the time that you're gonna have access, for example, to the final user. For example, like they're not in the social media, how are you gonna reach to them? So it's something that we need to be really like versatile in how we deal with this, and it's really something that I can't really answer because it's gonna be from person to person and to situation to situation, you know. But I do think that like, okay, if a student get this, they don't need to follow the 17 steps, but if they understand the macro view and how it's important to have branding strategy, they can decide what they want to use or not.
Totally.
Cool. Any more questions? Okay.
All right, well
Thank you,
done.
guys.
Well